Hello, everybody. This is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and thank you very much for joining the webinar today. And this month, we're talking about Lightning Forms, which is a product that has been around for quite some time. The last couple of years, we've had Lightning Forms available for modern SharePoint lists and libraries, and that's not just in SharePoint Online, but also in SharePoint on-premises as well. So if you do use SharePoint 2019 with some of the different modern lists and libraries inside your farm, you can also make use of Lightning tools there as well. So yeah, today we're going to kick off with a very quick introduction to Lightning tools and also to myself, so you know who you're listening to, and then we're going to jump right into it. There's not too many slides, you'll be happy to know. There's going to be a lot of demonstrations as we go through and build today a leave booking system. So if you're looking to take some paid time off, you can go through and build yourself a business form that would allow you to go through and book that time off and go through those approval processes and everything else that needs to happen within inside our organizations. So before we begin, as I mentioned, Lightning Tools. We're a company, we're around 15 years old. We've been providing different tools and components, web parts for Microsoft SharePoint for those 15 years. That's basically what we do. And these have iterated through lots of different versions of SharePoint on premises, but also through SharePoint Online as well. So those different categories of products include things like permissions management. We also have content aggregation as well for rolling up SharePoint list and library content. We have a discussion board tool that works inside of Teams and also SharePoint as well, so you can define different discussion boards for your projects and entire organization if you want to. We also have some data integration tools as well and data visualization, so you can build things like charts and reports on external or SharePoint list-based content. And of course, we've got the SharePoint list form design tool, which we're going to be taking a look at today. And that is called Lightning Forms. And there's also a sort of surprise product as well that we're going to be taking a look at towards the end of today's demonstration. That's called Lightning List Actions, which will, like I say, towards the end, introduce that one. So myself, Brett Lonsdale, I'm one of the founders of Lightning Tools and also sister company Enlightning. So you can go to enlightning.tech, sorry, enlightningtech.com. And Enlightning is a company that provides basically coaching around the Microsoft Power Platform, so Power BI and Power Apps and Power Automate, but we also do some SharePoint list coaching and also Teams coaching and things like that as well. So if that's new to you, go and check that out. It's enlightningtech.com, and you'll be able to explore what we do there as well. Okay, so today what we're going to be looking at is Lightning Forms, as I mentioned, and we'll do a quick intro. If you don't know what Lightning Forms is all about, the next slide is going to enlighten you on what Lightning Forms is. We're basically going to go through, as I mentioned, a very hands-on live demonstration of taking some SharePoint lists and transforming those into a leave booking solution, so your employees can go through and book time off work for any form of sort of holiday entitlement or sick leave or whatever is needed. They can go through and submit a business form that is laid out well and also attracts things like line managers to go through and approve those business requests as well. So yeah, Lightning Forms can be used against any sort of SharePoint list to transform it from just a list of fields into some form of solution, some form of business form that is going to collect the data and provide a sort of logical layout and calculations and other business logic that helps your form to be sort of natural to fill out. And now that we can, we're going to go through and add some style and conditional formatting to those forms as well. So this is a brand new feature that has just been launched this month. What we used to do with our forms was we'd basically go through and detect the theme that's been applied inside your modern site, and the colors and the layout would all be using those theme colors. But what you can do now is actually style the form. You can do so tastefully, I might add, and you can also go through and add conditions to that styling as well. So rather than just a little tiny asterisk indicating that a field is required, one reason for using some conditional formatting is if somebody doesn't complete the fields in the way that they should do, we can actually really draw their attention to those fields if they've not been completed in the way that we were expecting. And right at the very end, as I already mentioned as well, we're going to have a look at this brand new tool called Lightning List Actions. And this is going to allow us to not just perform actions behind buttons within inside of the list form, but also to actually fire actions in bulk against the list items that are inside your SharePoint list. So if you've got a large list and it's very time consuming to go in and out of each individual list item to click a button or to change field value, this is something that can be done very quickly using the list actions tool, and we'll be taking a look at that as we wrap up. Okay, so introducing Lightning Forms. If you're new to Lightning Forms, basically what this is going to provide you with is a simple way of taking a SharePoint list. So it is based on SharePoint lists and or multiple SharePoint lists, and combining those in order to build this this business form. And the reasons for using it might be that you're now working remotely and you've got a lot of paper-based forms. And we all, I think, get sort of carried away with some paper-based forms, and we have to go through and print them, we have to complete them, and then we have to scan them and then email them and so on. It's very time consuming. So one thing that we can do here is basically take some of those paper-based forms and make them SharePoint lists and then transform them into a logical form that you can access through SharePoint. It may also be that you've already digitalized some of your forms, but using Excel or Word or even PDF forms for that matter. And this can also be frustrating from somebody that completes these forms, especially Word, when you start typing in some of the fields and the formatting goes all over the place because it was basically underscores as the sort of placeholder for where you need to fill things out. So that sort of thing might be a reason for looking to move to SharePoint lists and Lightning Forms. Of course, Lightning Forms also provides a good sort of path for replacing InfoPath forms as well. So InfoPath is something that has been, no secrets about it being retired at some point. I think 2026 is the time where that's no longer going to be supported. If you're still using a lot of InfoPath forms, it may be that you look at something like Lightning Forms as a way to recreate that form content and take that time to rebuild the forms in a way that is meaningful to your organization. Or otherwise, it may be that you just need to tweak some of the different SharePoint list forms that are out of the box, add some functionality to those. So either of those, these are sort of some genuine reasons why you might want to use Lightning Forms inside your organization. So I'm not going to sort of go through every single feature in a PowerPoint slide. We're going to actually go in and do it. So what I'm going to do now is just Alt-Tab into SharePoint, and we're going to build this leave request solution. And all I've got built so far is the actual raw lists. So I'll take you into SharePoint, show you those lists and what they look like at the moment. So if we just run into the site contents of this particular site called Leave Booking, the three lists that we're going to be working with are these three here. So we've got a Lookup list that we're going to be looking up from. We also have an employee leave report. So the idea behind this is that we can track all of the leave that we've taken throughout the year. And we've also got the leave request as well. So this is the piece where we actually make a new request to say, yeah, I want to take some time off work, and expect our managers to go through and approve it. So if we start off actually with the first one, the department lookup, this is actually sort of based on Lightning tools. So some of our locations and or where people are based and different departments. So when you go through to book a leave request, we can select the location that you're based at and then choose the department. And what we want to do is basically be able to look up from this list, but have it filtered and have it cascade as we go through and look up from it. So I'm going to show you how to really transform those lookup columns when we're looking up from this list. And I'll demonstrate the problem that we have using the out-of-the-box lists in just a moment. Okay, so that's one of the lists in question. We've then got the leave report. And this leave report, as you can see, it's empty at the moment. If I click onto new, we've got the side panel, the modern side panel, but basically there's quite a few fields in here, and you can see that we have to scroll up and scroll down. And just like a paper-based form, there's some fields on here that we, as the person filling this out to book our leave request, are not the users that should actually fill out all of the fields. So, for example, the period start date and the period end date are things that may be set by my manager, and also the allocated days as well are something that should be perhaps set by my manager as well. So these could perhaps go into a different section, just like they would do on a paper-based form, where there's a different section with a box around it that says, for the line manager only, or to be completed by the company. These are separate fields that we could go through and put under a different tab somewhere. And I also want to demonstrate to you the other issue here is that these columns, as I mentioned, so this one looking up the locations is basically returning duplicate values. So we're going to look at how to get rid of those duplicate values, and also how to base these departments on the location that you select. So that's the cascading update that we're going to perform there. And we're also going to go through and add a little bit of style. So you can already see we've got this "you cannot leave this blank" error message, which if we do start using tabs, that could be overlooked, and we're wondering why we can't submit the form. And it's also not that clear on what we need to complete, because we've got these little tiny asterisks next to the required fields. So we may want to use some of the styling to make it more obvious of the different areas that we need to fill out. So this is the sort of header information for a leave request. But of course, in a separate list is where we actually go through and create the individual leave requests. So we may, of course, have several different times during the year where we're taking time off. So in here, we can put in the reason for the leave. We can choose the type of leave, whether it's annual sick leave, a learning day, or it's part of your leave entitlement, the start date and the end date of that. And we also have some total days, and then of course, whether it's approved or not and who it's approved by. Okay, so this is the three lists that is going to form our solution. So to start off with, we're going to jump into the employee leave report. Okay, and inside the leave report, we can click onto the Lightning Forms Customization dialog button, and this button here is something that is only going to appear to people that have design permissions, or they're a site owner. So anybody else won't be able to see that button and customize the forms if they just have edit permissions or contribute permissions or anything like that. And so in here, you can see we've got three different forms: the new form, the edit form, and the display form. So creating new items, editing existing items, of course, and opening items in turn use these three forms. And we can customize each of these independently, but you don't have to repeat the same steps every time if you don't want to. You can just customize the first form, export that design out, and then import it into the other two forms. And then you've got three identical forms, which you can further customize if you wanted slightly different functionality on the display form, for example, versus the edit form, or vice versa. So we're going to start off by customizing the new form. So clicking onto that button launches the design experience. And as you can see, we are here integrated into SharePoint. What we see is what we get here. We're basically going through and designing it. The only thing that's different is this form here is taking up my full screen. It doesn't once we actually save it unless we want it to. So we can simply go through and design that side panel that pops out, and it remains responsive, it remains modern, and so on. So I'm just going to go through and make some quick changes to the layout. So what we're going to do first of all is drop on a little bit of rich text. And I like adding a bit of rich text for a couple of reasons. One, you can provide a header. So we can add that, employee leave booking system, or whatever we want to call that. And we can obviously make that a title, or do whatever we want here. We could spend some time on making that look pretty. But this will do for me. And we can also use that rich text for the other reason, is to actually provide a little bit of instruction on the form. So if there was a sort of field where people are often misfilling it out or not really understanding what the label means, we could drop some rich text anywhere on the form here and explain what's required of them. So that's our title. And then beneath that, we are going to get into a little bit more layout by adding some tabs. So adding the tabs, we get a single tab by default. We can click onto a further tab and basically have as many tabs as we want. And this first tab, what we're going to do is just go through and give that name. So I'm going to call this the employee. So this is the bit that they would fill out. We can choose when or who this is going to be available to. So sometimes people won't even know that the tab exists. If you had like a sign-off tab or something like that, we can make it invisible unless you are a member of a particular SharePoint group or unless you're a line manager or whatever. So we'll get into some of that later on. We can choose an icon. So when we go through and select the icon here, we've got a number of different Fabric UI icons that we can select from. I'm just going to go with this one here, which is a person. So we'll select that. That can be my symbol for an employee. And then this second tab here is going to be the manager tab. So if you're a manager, you're allowed in here. And we can actually type in the word manager. There's all sorts of things that you can search on to try and find something that resembles a manager. There we go. All right, so we've got our two tabs. I will come back later on and make this only available to managers, and you'll see how I can do that. At the moment, it'll be available to everybody. Under the employee tab, we're going to actually take up less space on this form by having some side-by-side columns. So I can click onto the row configuration here and switch to 2 columns. So we've got the choice of how many columns we want, 1, 2, or 3. And then we can start to drag and drop the fields into the order we want them to appear in. So we can go in and drop in the employee name and maybe the contact phone number, etc. We'll be able to set who the line manager is, what our email address is, what location we're working at, what department we're a member of, and so on. And then we've got the period start date and the period end date. And I want those to be set by the manager. So we're just going to go with 2 columns there as well. So we'll have those side by side. And there they are. Okay, the allocated days is also going to be something set by the line manager. And the remaining days I want to be visible to anybody filling out this this form. So it's useful for the line manager, but also useful for the employee as well. So I'm just going to leave it there. Now, sometimes you plan your lists really, really well, and you overlook the fact that there was a column, and that's the case here. So I've got the allocated days and I've got the remaining days, but actually I need to have a total days taken. Now, a month ago, we'd have had to have gone, whoops, save and close this, go back into the list, add a new column, come back into the Lightning Forms again, and add that column. Now we don't, we can just simply click onto the add button here, add a new field, and that will open up the new field dialog. So I can put in days taken, this period, or whatever I want to call that, and we can choose a number as that type of field and click on OK. So we've now got that without having to go out of the design experience, which is a great feature. Okay, so there's the layout. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take the other list. This is the sublist. So we can scroll down to the other lists and libraries that make up this site, and there's that leave request. So you don't have to go to 2 different places. You can fill all of this out in one form. You can see here the leave request list is embedded, just like you would have a repeating table inside of InfoPath. And what I'm going to do is treat this as a sub item, which means rather than show all of the leave requests for everybody, I'm only going to show the leave requests relevant to this particular employee. And it will do that by generating a lookup column. So if you don't already have a lookup column, you can create one from here. Just click on that plus, and if you're comfortable with the name, just choose add. We now have a lookup column, and we can go through and refine this sublist by changing the text and choosing whether we want to be able to search the sublist and things like that as well. Okay, so that's our sublist on the form, which is fantastic. We're starting to get our layout as we want it. So next, let's move into some calculations. So what we're going to do here is some simple calculations, first of all, just to sort of show you the plumbing of that. So we've got the remaining days. So I can click onto the configure expressions little parentheses here against any field. You'll notice that that pops up. So as we click onto that, these are the different expression configurations that we can perform. And what we're going to do here is just create a simple calculation. So we'll go into the calculated expression builder, and we're going to calculate this by taking the allocated days and deducting from that the days taken, which is there. So that yeah, I can just simply double click onto those fields. We can test it if we want to, and I can save that, and that will create the calculation for the remaining days. Now, the next calculation I want to perform is actually to take the total days from here and put those into the days taken this period. So we'll click onto the parentheses again against the calculation property. We can now get to our sublist, drill into the sublist here, and these are all the fields that are in the sublist. So what we're going to do is take the total days and expand that, and then I can just simply double click onto the sum calculation, and that drops that in there for me. We can hit save, and we've got our calculation working. So these will all be aggregated up, calculating a total, and we can then deduct that from the allocated days to show how many remaining days we've got this period. So that's all great. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is just add a button. So right at the very top here, we've got the standard save and cancel button. So from the actions menu here, we can get to the command bar. And what I'm going to do is just add a little submit or submit request button. There we go. And again, we can choose an icon for that one. So there is a nice little submit one, or send, I think it is. There we go. Looks like a little paper plane, I think. So we can choose that, and we'll configure the actions here. And first thing I'm going to do is simply go through and save the form, and then I'm going to add an action that is going to send an email to my line manager. So we're going to send this from the current user. So we'll go through and select the user's email in this case, and we're going to send that through to the line manager. And here is the line manager field. And because that has lots of different properties about the person, it's a person column, so it's got title and email and so on. So we're going to grab the email address of my line manager from that person column, and in here we'll just have a leave request, and I'll put please see my leave request. Okay, so there's our save, send, and we can then simply go through and close the form if that's what we want to do. So there's the actions behind that one. And next, I'm going to have an approve button. So we'll have approve expenses. And for this one, we're going to go through and select a check mark. Okay, now you may not be in the position where you can approve your own expenses. So this is one where it should only be visible to you if you are the line manager. So what I'm going to do is click onto the parentheses here, and we'll go through, and we could just say is equal to line manager. In this case, we'll just do that. In fact, sorry, we just need the one there. One equals, there we go. So equals line manager, or just line manager would do fine. And that will then only show up if you are a line manager. If you wanted to, you could also check whether you're a member of a particular group. So here is the is member of group. So if you had, say, a leave request approvers group or something like that, then if you're a member of that group, then only members of that group will be able to click that button, and so on. And this is something that can be applied to fields, it can be applied to tabs, and what have you. Okay, so that is basically the logic, and in a moment we're going to get into some styling and so on, but let's just give this a go. So we're going to save and close, and we'll hit new. And one of the challenges that you'll probably see, just bear with me one moment. One of the challenges is this is going to open up as a small panel, which doesn't look great when you have got those side-by-side columns. So one thing that I will just do before we test this out is jump back into that new form, and we can change the initial size of the form. So notice we can do that from the form settings here. So in there, we can make this a large form as opposed to a medium form. It will still be responsive, it will still be modern, and so on. And it's still going to be a side panel, but the benefit is you've got a little bit more space to work when you've got side-by-side columns. So if we hit new, there's the large panel, and if I just bring that down into a smaller window, you'll notice that it does remain responsive. So if we were opening this up on an iPad or a mobile, app or something like that, it's going to shrink down for me. Okay, so here we'll just enter a fictional employee ID, and we'll put in an employee name. Okay, and a phone number. We can choose who my line manager is, and any other information that we want, so my email, etc. And we'll fix this problem as well in a moment. I don't know, I need to tick all of those. Let me tick that one. There we go. So there's those fields, and now I'm going to make a new leave request. So when I click new in the sublist, we can go and drop in the reason. So this is annual leave entitlement. We could, of course, calculate the days here, and we don't want to be able to approve this ourselves. I'll show you how to accomplish that in a moment. But as I hit save, that has put the leave there for 5 days, and my entitlement wasn't set. So let's say I was allocated 25 days to be taken within inside this period. I've now used 5 of them, and that's totaling up my remaining days as 20. And we could go through and drop in another one in here as well. So we'll have another holiday. There we go. So probably going to be a UK holiday, but there we go. Let's just drop those dates in. I'm not sure how many days that was. I'm just going to put a number in there. So that's now deducting from those remaining days. Great. So there's our system, and we can either just save that if we want to come back to it later on, or I can now submit it. That has that added action of saving it, but also going through and sending the email as well to my line manager, alerting them to the fact that I've made this request. And if we go back into the site contents, you'll notice that we've got 2 items created in the leave request and 1 item in the employee leave report. So they're the items that have just been generated from that. All right, so that's how to build the form, but we've got some new features to explore. One of them is the adding fields with a new design experience. So you've just seen that one. That's where we added the additional calculated field. We've got the styling and conditional formatting to look at, and also the list actions and improved lookup columns as well. So let's jump back in and apply some style and conditional formatting to our SharePoint list forms. So we're just going to Alt-Tab back into the employee leave report. Okay, and we'll again bring up the Lightning Forms customization dialog. We can see that we've only customized the new form here, so we'll jump into that. Okay, so one thing that I pointed out right at the very start was when you're on the form, it's not always obvious about those fields that you really need to fill out. So if there's some things that are key to filling out, such as the email and the contact phone, then what we can do is go and add a little bit of style to that. And the way that we would add the style is by coming up here to the styling button, and we've got the general form styling. So this is literally general styling. So if we wanted to apply the same style to labels or to fields or to buttons, wherever they are inside the form, then this is where we can go through and do that. But then we also have the individual control styles as well, where you can be specific against individual fields and apply styles. So let's just make a generic change across all the fields. One piece of feedback that we often get is that the labels are too small. So against the fields here, we'll click onto the little builder on the right hand side, add a style, and we can name that style. And the reason for naming a style is so that you can easily reuse that style if you want to. So this is going to be called general style for fields. I could name that differently if I wanted to. And this shows all the different things that we can go through and apply style to. So so what I do want to do is just add a little border around things. So we'll click onto the border color. And notice that I could choose a theme color. So I've got the teal theme applied to my site. So all of these are the colors that are standard inside that theme design. So you're not going to end up with a form that looks ridiculous. It's not going to have bright green or bright pink on it or anything like that, unless you want it to. So you can go through and choose any color you like in here, or you can make it tasteful and pick out one of the sort of teal colors from the teal theme. So I'm going to do that. So I've set a border, and I could increase the width of the border if I wanted to as well to 3 pixels, and change anything else in here. So your hover colors and that sort of thing if we wanted to as well. Now you'll notice here that those have got an orange or yellow border around them, and that's showing you what has actually been set. So if I wanted to clear that, I could just go through and set this back to whatever the default option was as well. Okay, so this is how that that basically behaves. So what I'm going to do here is just let's change the color of the labels to the teal, and we'll make them slightly bigger as well, so 10.5 points instead of 9 points. And let's apply that, and you can see here that the font size has increased somewhat, and yeah, we've also got the color teal applied to that. So that's the fields, and let's come down here to some individual controls now. So what I want to do is go through to something like the contact email, and make it obvious that we want this to be filled out. So style for email, we could put contact details if we want. Okay, and this is where we can set the rule or the condition that we want to apply, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to literally go through and set that that border color on here. So we'll select again the teal, make that 3 points, and let's apply that. And what you should see is email is a little bit more obvious now that we need to fill that out. And if I spent quite a bit of time going through and configuring these different colors, I don't want to go through all of that again. So now all I need to do, if I want to apply the same thing to the contact phone number, is just find contact phone number in the tree here, add a style, and we'll say from the existing style, we'll choose this one here, the style for contact details. And all I need to do is just go through and apply that. And we've now got that set on both of those fields. Okay, so so that's setting a bit of style there. And now we can go through and add style conditionally. And the way that I'm going to do that is on this manager tab. So behind that manager tab, which is shown here, we have the allocated days and the days taken in this period. So what I want to do is, if the days taken this period exceeds the allocated days, then that's when we want to go through and change the styling and so on. Or we could do it on the remaining days as well if the remaining days have exceeded. So days taken this period, let's go through and click that, add a style. So we'll accept the default name and my condition. So we'll add a condition just like we create a calculation. So the days taken this period is greater than the allocated days. So there's our condition right there. So we'll just go through and save that. Now, if that was to occur, then again, we want to sort of highlight the fields or make it obvious. So we can go through and change maybe the label color. So we could change the background color or the foreground color. And there is a dark red, which is a sort of standard theme color that you can go through and apply. You could, of course, choose the bright red if you want to. And then we could set the border color as well. For some reason, that dark red doesn't bleed through, so you do have to kind of try and get close to it with the color picker. Of course, if you've got the RGB code, that will help. So that is being set on the field itself, but we could also actually take that same condition there. Let's just apply that one and do it on the tab, just in case I don't notice if I'm on the other tab. So we can highlight the entire tab if we want to. So if we just move up to the manager tab and add a style, we could either go with that one that I just set, or we can even say from an existing style or from a template, we can choose an error style. So there's one that's already built in. I just need to drop in the condition that I just copied. Okay, so there's some styling, and literally you can go through and style everything on the form. It does go through and build the CSS as well. So if you want to manually change that, that's something that you can also do. And you can export your styles out if you wanted to import them into another form. Okay, so let's close that one, and we'll save and close the form, and we'll just generate one more list item. So you can see we've got the colors in here. Let's just make this a little bit more obvious. And we'll go through and complete that. And we'll give some allocated days, so just 10. And in here, we'll have a leave request, and that will just be for holiday. We'll go through and set days. And we'll say that was 30. And there we go. So the tab here has been highlighted in red, and we can see that we've exceeded the days taken this period. So we'd need to make some adjustments one way or another before we go through and approve that. Okay, so that's how we can add some of this conditional styling and standard styling to the form to improve that sort of look and feel of these forms. So the next thing I want to do is just show you another new feature, and that's just really a refinement of an existing feature, and this is the lookup column. So with the lookup column, we've got the line manager and the location and the department. So what I'm going to do here is go through and customize these. So if we select the location, one of the things I can do with that is choose now an enhanced lookup. One reason for using the enhanced lookup is if you have exceeded the threshold in the list that you're looking up from. So this will overcome some of those threshold issues. But we also have a nice remove duplicate items option in here as well that will just bring it down to the unique items. So that's all good. We can now do that, and then we come to the department, and what I want to do is filter this based on the value that's coming from the location. So here we can provide a lookup filter. Now, ordinarily, if I'd have hard-coded the choice in the location field, I would just simply say that the department title is equal to the location field, wherever that might be. There we go. But that's not going to work here because this is actually a lookup column, so it's returning the key value as well as the item that I selected. So what I need to do is just say that this contains an expression, and my expression is going to be the location value, so not the location key. So we're just going to grab that value and use that to do the comparison and filter our lookup on that basis. Okay. So once more, we'll save and close. And this time, if we go through and create a new item in here, and we'll select a location, notice that we're only seeing those locations once now, and now we can go through and choose a department from those locations. So this is a much better improvement to that, and it's also scalable. So as we go through and add more locations in the future to the underlying list, they're of course going to populate in here because we're looking up from that column and not maintaining a hard-coded choice column. All right, so that's how we can basically go through and build the form. One thing I'm going to do is apply that same look and feel to the other two forms. So if we just jump into the new form here, and I'll export the form, so that just drops into my downloads folder. It's called employee leave, and we can save and close this form. And once again, go into the Lightning Forms customization dialog. We'll go into the edit form, and we can bring that whole design and layout into this one. So just simply by going into import form, yes, we're happy that we're going to override that, and we'll select the relevant JSON file. So notice we've got the same look and feel now applied here to the edit form, and we can go through and do the same thing on the read form as well. And unlike Power Apps, this actually allows you to independently change those forms as well. So like I say, if there's anything that you did want to do differently on the display form to the edit form or to the new form, then that can be done easily. All right, so we've got the three layouts. So as we go through and open up one of these items now, so if we open up the initial one, I didn't let that refresh fully, so it's shown full screen. Let me just hit back for a moment in here. Refresh that view. There we go, and open it up. Oh, it's still opening full screen, weirdly. But yeah, we've got that same layout here in in our form, which is great. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is look at this brand new product. So this is an add-on to Lightning Forms, and what it allows us to do is basically perform actions just like we do behind an action button or against the form load actions, and we can do that from the list view itself. And this is something that's available also independently. So if Lightning Forms isn't your thing, but you do like the list actions, then you can actually go through and acquire the list actions independently of Lightning Forms. So let's take a look at that. So as we just alt tab back into SharePoint, you can see what we have here is the Lightning List Actions button. And what I'm going to do is use this to reset the start date and the end date and the allocated days. So at the end of the year, we can basically go through and reset those values so that you get a new holiday allocation for the new year. So we'll click onto Lightning List Actions. And once again, this is security trimmed out. I forgot to remove these earlier. There we go. Let's just take those out and pretend that you didn't see that. Okay, so they're the ones I created earlier. So yeah, at the end of the year, we can basically trigger a button, and that's going to go through and update these values. So to add a new action, we just click onto the Add New Action, and we can give it a name. So reset allocation. Oh, I've spoiled it now by showing you that. We can select an icon. So just like before, and if we do a search on reset, that's where we got that icon from. So we'll okay that. And I'm going to run this on the selected items. So we'll choose selected items. It could run on the current list or just a single selected item as well. And we again have that visible expression. So if this is something that we only want to show up to certain people, then we could set that, or not just certain people, but if a value has already been set. For example, it may be that you have an approve button to approve tasks, and if the task has already been approved, then you shouldn't show the approve button. So we can go through and set our expression in there, and again we'll customize that shortly. So if I click onto the configure actions, the first, no need to save this time because the item already exists, it's in the view. So what we're going to do is just come down here to a update list item, and we can choose the list, so it can be on any site or this site, and it's the leave request that I'm looking at. We have a required field, which is the list item ID, so I'm just going to go in and grab the list item ID. Sorry, that's just spinning for a moment. Let me try that one more time. There we go. So we've got the list item ID for the item that we want to change, and then we can go through and set the value that we want to change. So in the approved, we're going to set that to a 1, and we can also go through and set who it was approved by. So in this case, it will be the current user. So we'll get the current user title. There we go. All right, so we'll save that, and the next thing we could do is send an email and so on, just like you saw before. So we can string a list of different actions together. We can execute script if we want to, or we could also start a flow using HTTP requests. So a number of different things that we can perform in here. But that's an update list item, so I'm just going to stick with that one, and we'll okay it. And there it is. And then underneath that, we can go through and either edit the action, or we can add a new action and then embed that as a sub item if we wanted to. Okay, so we're just going to save that. And you can see here we've got the, sorry, I went off on a different tangent then. So that was the reset allocation that's not resetting the allocation. So let me just go through and reconfigure this one. So this is going on the leave request, whereas actually we wanted it to be on the leave report. So yeah, still the equals ID, and we'll set the start date to be the 1st of the 1st, 2022 to the 31st. There we go. And allocated days to 25. That's what I intended to do. All right, so let's save that. Okay, and hopefully I haven't confused anything there, but if I now, as an end user, go through and select these items, you'll see we've now got a reset allocation button at the top here, and if we click onto that, I could optionally do a reload as well as one of the actions, so I didn't. So I'm just going to have to do a Control R to refresh. But you can see here the allocated days are both set to 25 now, and we've updated that period start date and period end date. And of course, if you wanted to use this to approve things as well, you could also do that as well. All right, so that is a quick overview of Lightning Forms and also the brand new list actions. So you can get Lightning list actions today, and of course also Lightning Forms as well. So going onto the Lightning Tools website, from the products menu here, you're going to see the Lightning list actions is available. You can go through and download that and try it out. And likewise, we've got the modern forms, which is available here as well. And there's a 30-day trial of both of those, or you've got the ability to go through and book a demo if there was some specific requirements that you wanted to discuss and see if they are achievable or not with Lightning Forms. Okay, so at that point, I'm going to open up for questions, and you can basically use the Q&A dialogue for this. So if you wanted to post a question, feel free to do that. And yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you put forward. Or if you can't think of any right now, please also email those questions in on brett@lightningtools.com as well. Okay, so it looks like we have one question at the moment. So the export styles button says export general styles. Is that the only styles for the general things at the top level? Can you also export a specific style that you've created for an individual field or tab, etc.? So you could reuse it on another form. Yeah, I believe so. So you can go through and yeah, export any of those styles and reuse those elsewhere. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that's the only question at the moment. So yeah, just to reiterate that, if I just jump back in. So yeah, you can export the entire form, of course, if you wanted to, but also through the dialog here. Under the styling option, yeah, you have got that that ability to export those. Oh, I see what you mean with the general styles. So could we go through and export them? Yeah, so that's where your export styles and your import styles is against the individual control styles, so that you can reuse those. Great. Okay, so we're getting some of the questions coming in. So does the Lightning action, so the Lightning list actions is included in the Lightning form license? It is an add-on. Yeah, we can. Well, the pricing details are on the Lightning Tools website. But yeah, Eric, we can follow up with you on that one as well after the call. Another question here: can you use the SPX pages as an individual page separate from the main list all items page? Sorry, just get my head around this one for a moment. Okay, I might have to come back to that one because I'm not sure exactly what is being asked there. But yeah, with the SPX, so we've got the new form SPX. Just in case this is something that you're requesting, using something like yeah, SharePoint Designer, you could go through and create an additional ASPX form if you wanted to, and go through and customize that. Or you can also make these full screen as well, rather than a side panel, if that's something that you wanted to achieve. And if you did want to do that, it's going into the form settings here, and you can just simply choose the full screen option. Okay, so another question is, are you planning to create templates for us to start from, or do all the forms start with a SharePoint list that we create? Yeah, so at the moment, it's you start with a SharePoint list. So you go through and define those columns that you want inside your SharePoint list, and that's the starting point. So when you go through and customize it, those fields will be on the form, and you can start to build out your logic from there. But yeah, great idea is to actually create some sort of common layouts that people may be able to use in some of the standard lists. So another question is there a way to include JavaScript files or use custom functions in the condition editor? So yeah, whilst I'm here in the designer, so there's places where you can go in and, of course, configure the expressions. We didn't get into any code, but against all of the different properties here, if it was calculated, for example, or an initial value, you can go in and, rather than just using the function expressions, you can use function code. So you could go through and write script in there if you wanted to. And if we just jump into the styling, so the question is, could you do it here as well? And if we jump into into one of these conditions, notice that you've also got the function code there too. So yeah, if you wanted to build out your condition using function code, then that would also be possible there. And yeah, it is possible. So another question is, can you provide exported files that we can import based on a list that has correct fields? Yeah, so that would be the requirement. So if you were looking at getting a template that you can use against, you know, some of the standard lists, like contacts, for example, would be a good one. If you wanted to build some custom layouts for contact lists, then certainly that is something that we could do, is we could design a better form for contact lists, and because those fields would be standard, you would be able to go through and import those. Absolutely right. And any plans to import InfoPath forms, or provide a good method to convert InfoPath to Lightning forms? It is something that we tried or did in the past. It wasn't something that really got much uptake. So it hasn't been continued, and that was for the classic forms and not the modern forms. But yeah, again, we can follow up with you and discuss that one in a bit more depth. And yeah, there's another question here with regards to so the JavaScript. So this is a correction. Could you actually use a JavaScript file so you can reuse functions? You could potentially do that as an action. Again, it might be worthwhile if we can just follow up with you on that one, just to make sure that we're discussing the right thing. But you can extend actions with some JavaScript files and reference those. Okay, I think that is most of the questions at the moment. Great. So yeah, thank you for all of those questions. This was recorded, so we will send out a link so you've got that to hand as well if you wanted to rewatch anything. There is quite a lot of updates to this one. So if you are an existing customer of Lightning Forms, you will need to go and get the package, because there are some additional libraries and changes that we made. So you can go through and get that from the Customer Download Center and apply that to your app catalog. That will give you the new changes that you can now start to make the benefit of. But for now, thank you very much for attending, everybody. It's great to see you all, and see you soon.